There have been a lot of rumours floating around recently concerning the PlayStation 5. Not really surprising given that we're less than a year away until launch now. One of the most persistent rumours relates to backwards compatibility, with a lot of Sony commentators getting all hot under the collar about the possibility of full backwards compatibility across all Sony's consoles, ranging from the PS1 right up to the PlayStation 4. These rumours appear to have started gaining real traction back in September last year, with a tweet from someone called PS Erebus, who stated, "Do not dispose of, trade or sell your PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4 games." The inference being, obviously, that all games from across PlayStation's history will run on the PlayStation 5. How realistic is this, though? It would certainly be a massive U-turn for Sony and for Jim Ryan, who stated in the past that Sony weren't interested in backwards compatibility, even going so far as to say, "We've dabbled with backwards compatibility. I can say it is one of those features that is much requested, but not actually used much." That, and I was at a Gran Turismo event recently where they had PS1, PS2, PS3 and PS4 games, and the PS1 and PS2 games, they looked ancient. Like, why would anyone play this? Why indeed, Jim? Why would anyone want to play your old back catalogue games? Showed a lot of respect for their back catalogue there. I think that was rather weird. But anyway, the statement was made back in 2017, and a lot has changed since then. Not least the success of the Xbox backwards compatibility program. And it wouldn't be the first time in recent years that Sony has changed its tune. They've already moved towards embracing cross-platform play, and it looks like they're going to be sticking with it for the next generation. So yeah, it's quite possible that backwards compatibility is coming to the PlayStation 5. Whether it will be any more than for the PlayStation 4, though, is open to debate. There are two ways in which you can implement backwards compatibility, or at least two ways that I can think of here anyway. The first is to give gamers the option to play the discs they already own. And the second is to make backwards compatible games available to buy, in this instance in the PlayStation Store. Or you could do both, of course, but it makes little difference to the arguments relating to the practicalities of how you implement it. The first option of allowing gamers to play the games they already own on disc would seem to be the easiest, but I'll get to that in a moment. There are two problems, as I see it, that relate to making all Sony's back catalogue available to buy as digital downloads. First, this would put these downloads in direct competition with PlayStation Now. We've already heard that Sony are going to be putting a lot of focus on PlayStation Now moving forwards. So if they have their back catalogue available to download from their store, that will give less incentive to people to actually subscribe to PlayStation Now as a service. Of course, what we could actually see is that these games are added to PlayStation Now as opposed to being made available to buy, and that would seem to make sense. But it's also not a ridiculous idea that the games could be made available to buy as well as being available on PlayStation Now. Both Microsoft and Sony do this already, both with PlayStation Now and Game Pass. And in fact, you can buy games at a discount on Xbox if you're a subscriber to Game Pass. But that brings me to the second problem, and it isn't one that I can see Sony overcoming easily. Whether these games are made available to buy via Sony's eShop or are incorporated into PlayStation Now, or both, Sony will still have the problem of rights. I've said this before, but I think it needs to be repeated. Sony don't own the rights to many of these games and will therefore have to obtain them before they can make them available either as part of PlayStation Now or as a digital download to buy. And that isn't a trivial problem. Phil Spencer has talked about this issue when trying to source games for the Xbox backwards compatibility program, and GOG has given interviews talking about exactly the same problem when trying to source older PC games for their service. Sometimes it's just not possible to get the rights to a game, and that will be no different for Sony. Of course, Sony could partially overcome this issue by implementing the second option that I mentioned earlier, by opening up the PlayStation 5 so that you could play disc-based games from all 4 previous iterations of the PlayStation. They could actually provide the option of full backwards compatibility. Is that likely though? Well, from a financial perspective, it wouldn't be a particularly attractive proposition, as Sony would make no money at all if people are able to use discs they already own. It's not unprecedented though. Xbox already allows gamers to use some original Xbox and Xbox 360 discs in their consoles, and that will continue with the Series X. And in fact, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see more games being made available as we go forward. But this raises another question. When you put an old disc into the Xbox, that disc triggers a download. In effect, the version of the game will be exactly the same as the download that you can purchase from the Microsoft Store. There are advantages and disadvantages to this. The advantage is that this allows Xbox to actually patch the games to make them look and run better than they would have done on the original hardware. One of the best examples of this is Red Dead Redemption. The 360 game is stunning on the Xbox One X and is currently the best version of the game on console. But the disadvantages of doing that go back to the point I made earlier about licensing. So Sony have a dilemma. Do they go down the same route as Xbox and allow us to download and/or install games from disk that will then be patched, or do they just run an emulator that allows us to play the games directly from disk but without the patches that offer improved functionality? Because, as I said before, if Sony do intend to go down the same route as Microsoft, then they simply won't be able to offer full backwards compatibility due to those licensing restrictions. Basically, the only way Sony can offer full backwards compatibility is if older games run from their original discs via an emulator within the PlayStation 5. Any other option can only offer a select few games. I can't see any way around that fact. So that still leaves the question, will the PlayStation 5 offer complete backwards compatibility? And honestly, I doubt it. All the problems that I've laid out suggest that it's not likely. They might choose to allow gamers to play their old games directly from discs, and that would be fantastic. It almost certainly won't offer the same improvements that we see on the Xbox, but a lot of retro gamers, well, they simply won't care about that, and they'll be totally fine with it. If they can play their entire collections on one console, well, it's a win, isn't it? And if Sony do choose to go down that route, it'll be interesting to see how Microsoft respond. Because Xbox backwards compatibility is absolutely fantastic, but the way it's currently implemented means that we will almost certainly never see every single game from across their back catalogue appearing. I'm honestly not sure what I'd prefer. A select number of games to be made available that offer improved visuals and functionality, or all games to be made to run from disk but without any improvements. But what do you think? And do you think it's likely that we'll see full backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 5? As I say, I very much doubt it. I can't imagine that we will get every single game made available. And, you know, if Sony do implement that, then fantastic. I'll be the first lining up to give it a go. And I'll be looking around the second-hand shops and the charity shops to see if I can find PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 games. And maybe even some PlayStation 4 games by that point. But yeah, you know, I honestly, I can't see that happening. But as I say, I have been wrong before. So, you know, it may well be possible that I'm completely wrong on this and that we will see Sony implementing full backwards compatibility via disc. I think it's much more likely, though, that we do see a Microsoft style of backwards compatibility where you can put the disc in of certain games and then those games will be downloaded from Sony's servers to your hard drive. It just seems to me to be the most logical way of going about it. But, I would like to see all their games, their entire back catalogue being made available just by putting the disc in. And yeah, as I say, I'd be queued up for that one. But as I say, let me know what you think about this. Would you like to see backwards compatibility across all the generations of consoles for the PlayStation? Or would you like to see it implemented in the same way that Microsoft have done it? And what is the likelihood for you? Are you like me? Are you kind of dubious that we will see full backwards compatibility? Because as I say, I know I keep saying it, but I do think it's highly unlikely. But anyway, I'm going to go and find my cup of tea because it's in the other room somewhere. And I will speak to you guys in the next one. Bye.